So, John, this is everybody. This is John DiCesare, who's our tuba teacher. We're just super fortunate to have him, and he played with us. Some of you remember a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now. I think it's been.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
3 years ago for the band festival. Played Michael Dougherty's fantastic piece, Mississippi.
Reflections of the Mississippi.
Reflections of the Mississippi. There we go. And I remember at the time in rehearsal, first time he played with this, I said to the group, I don't know much about much, but I know a little bit about tuba playing, and he can do that. He's a great, great player and is subbing around the country. And like all of us, is holed up practicing now. And since we had Doug Yo last, someone who's at the other end of his career, now retired from the Boston Symphony, I thought it'd be interesting to talk to somebody who's basically launched now into his career and kind of talk about some of the same kinds of issues, given the fact that the world is a different place in some respects than it was, 35 years ago when Doug was getting started. So John, tell us about, where you're from and kind of how you chose music, why you were first interested in music. One of the questions we like to ask is, do you feel like you chose music, or do you think music kind of chose you? Tell us about it.
Okay, all right. This is a long story, but I think it's good. I think it's worth it because, a lot of my colleagues went to school, lessons in high school, lessons in middle school, went to Juilliard, went to Curtis, got a playing job, and this the kind of the natural progression of orchestral musicians. Mine was quite a bit different. I didn't have started off, my parents aren't musicians at all. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My dad worked in a steel mill. My mom worked at a bank. So music really wasn't too much in my family, but I liked the band, and all my friends played in the band, probably similar to a lot of people here. And then I actually didn't play tuba in high school other than marching band. I played euphonium, and I really wanted to play euphonium in college. So I went to a really small school in the middle of nowhere. I didn't have lessons or anything. And I auditioned. I wanted to be a band teacher because I saw how much my band teacher had a good time. And I saw that it was, band was my favorite class. And I just thought that's what I wanted to do, which is kind of what I did at that time. It's what I wanted to do. So I applied. I auditioned a couple of places for music ed. I auditioned at Bowling Green. I didn't get in. I auditioned at Ohio State. I didn't get any money. And then I auditioned at Kent State. So that they gave me a little bit of money to play tuba. Funny story about the tuba is I didn't have a tuba, and the school only had sousaphones. So I showed up, and I remember learning my piece in my mom's minivan the morning of the audition with this bell off the sousaphone, just sitting there like trying to learn. Because I was such a slacker. I was a procrastinator. I was a horrid student. If one of my students was like me, I don't even know if I would keep teaching them, to be honest. So then I did music ed, and I started lessons in college, of course. And I started to get better, and then I was playing in orchestra and playing in band at school. And I think I got my first gig when I was a senior. And then I was like, wait a minute, people are going to pay me to do this. So that's kind of when it really set in that this is something I wanted to at least give a shot to do.
So why did you switch to tuba off? You probably wanted to play euphonium just because they had better parts. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I like euphonium. I still to this day love euphonium. I like it. I think the sound. I love the sound. I think the parts. Yeah, the parts were better. Something. I kind of wanted to play euphonium, and the only reason I picked tuba was they gave me money to play tuba. They gave me a $5,000 scholarship to play tuba, 0 to play euphonium. So I played tuba. This is all like.
So that's really the thing that you said really quickly there, and one of the things we've kind of been seizing on are the failures. I love the fact that you auditioned at Bowling Green, right, which is in the same sentence as Juilliard, right? I mean, and you couldn't even get in there. And
yeah,
you at Ohio State, and they said, nice kid, no money, basically. Yeah, wow. So how did you receive that news? Did that tick you off? Were you just like, I'm better than that? Or did you just think you stunk?
I guess I was so ignorant to the world and the expectations because I had no frame of reference. I never heard an orchestra in high school. I never, I'm old. YouTube wasn't a thing. So I couldn't just go look up some crazy tuba player playing something. So it was just like, I thought I could play fairly well. And I think I probably took Bowling Green not that well. And then Ohio State, I'm a huge Ohio State fan being from Ohio, and I wanted to go there because of the football team, which is a stupid reason to go to school. But as a high school guy, I was, all about Ohio State football. So, and I wanted to dot the I one day. So that bummed me out.
Right. Yeah, Brad McDavid's dotted the I.
I know. He's told me, and I'm a little jealous. I kind of wish I did it.
That's funny. So you're practicing your audition on a sousaphone in the car without the bell on.
Yeah, at the hotel, the morning I had an audition that morning. Yeah, it was horrible. And my friend, we were sharing the sousaphone, me and my friend. It was a disaster.
It's a pre-COVID world for sure too. That's
right.
Funny. What on earth did you audition? What did you play? I'm just so curious.
I played Air and Beret.
Oh
yeah, just simple. It's something, I don't know. They were in desperate need of tuba players. It was like a perfect storm. I wasn't as horrible as I thought. They didn't have any tuba players, and I don't know, just the way, because I entered with only one other freshman. So the school was just, I think it was at that point, it was, the yes policy.
So was there a teacher there that lit you up, or was it more just the ensemble experience, or what was it that made you?
No, my first teacher was actually Craig Knox from the Pittsburgh Symphony. Before he won the job in Pittsburgh, he plays in Center City Brass Quintet for my quintet students. I see Griffin looking down at something. So before he won the Pittsburgh job, he was freelancing in Cleveland, teaching at Kent State. So he kind of really lit the fire as far as hearing somebody that could actually play the tuba, and it wasn't just bass lines and pep band music, because that's all we played in high school. We didn't play any serious music, like some of these schools do. So and then and I tell students this all the time that want to come to UW that, the studio is not very small, not very big, I mean, but the opportunity is huge. This is what happened to me at Kent State. There was a grad student my first year, and then he left. So I was the oldest kid in the tuba studio as a sophomore. So I had to play in orchestra, I had to play in band, I had to play in quintet, and I just got thrown in. I had to figure it out, and I would say that was huge, because then it was just, survival at that point. And then that made me get so much better. I try to tell that to kids that are coming to UW that, they might want an IU size studio, but you have so much opportunities here, and if you're willing to make use of those opportunities, then you have a huge advantage, in my opinion.
Yeah, and getting thrown into the fire is a good thing. Similar for me. The first time Doug Yo ever spoke to me, he transferred in when I was a sophomore. Yeah, he was a sophomore, but he was good, and he transferred from Indiana. Anyway, we played a children's concert. We played 1812, and he turned to me at the end of the concert. The first words he ever spoke to me were, "You sound like you're in 8th grade," and he stomped off the stage. And I did, and I had to figure that out.
Oh my gosh. How not to make friends 101 right there.
Right. Well, we couldn't be more different. We're best friends in the world today, but he grew up on Long Island, and I grew up on a farm, and, we just couldn't be more different. But anyway.
Right.
So go on. So you're in college, you're getting pulled along by fate, essentially.
Yeah, essentially fate and hard work. I still do music ed. Because I like teaching a lot. I like teaching students, and this whole orchestral thing was kind of a shot in the dark in a sense. It was just like, I'm going to go at it 100%. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. But I wanted to have music ed. I wanted to have that music ed degree as kind of like if this orchestra thing doesn't work out, I would be very happy and content doing this. So I finished the music ed, and then there was actually a grad student opening at Kent. So I stayed on I did my master's there. And then what did I do? Oh, and then I went to Pittsburgh and started and completed my artist diploma with Craig in Duquesne University. And that's when I started really taking off as far as like, I think I did well in my first audition when I was in Pittsburgh. Just getting better and better and better, just practicing a lot and listening a lot, taking a lot of lessons. Yeah.
What changed in terms of your like personal habits during that time relative to the instrument? What changed over those, sounds like about a 3-year pretty critical period there?
I would say after my freshman year of college, things really changed. I was 80, 90 pounds heavier and just lazy. And I think at one point I just, I'm a pretty like focused person, I would say. I think you have to be successful in a lot of things. I'm pretty focused, but my focuses when I first entered college were video games and, maybe some college things that weren't great. And
Something better
school,
changed. Yeah, good.
right. School practicing, stuff like that were just kind of back burner. And then I kind of stopped playing video games as much, honestly. And I started eating well. And I think every aspect of my life definitely changed. Eating, working out, practicing. And then I guess it
What,
just
what
never
did,
stopped.
so what did the working out do for your playing?
Um,
Or did it?
I noticed maybe 5% better if I'm in shape versus not in shape or something. I didn't notice too much of a difference, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just more mental well-being and general health stuff.
Yeah, I think just the daily structure, if you're like, especially what's helping me now, and I had a hard time getting used to this, I'm not perfect at all, is just having structure. I wake up and I get a shower just because, I don't have to get a shower, but just having that, like, okay, I get up, get a shower, I might get dressed, I'll practice for 2-3 hours, workout. Just having those kind of daily like check offs, I think has really helped because it's really easy to just lay in bed until noon on your phone, which I've definitely done before, obviously. But I think just having those daily things. So like working out was one of those things. I would work out 3, 4, sometimes 5 days a week in college and try to eat well. It was just the whole being was just being a little bit more just structured and productive, I guess.
Yeah, because college is stressful. I think it is stressful. Life's stressful now, sure, but college is stressful. It's such a change, and the quicker we get to that routine, that's sustaining. That's what's interesting about it. It doesn't feel sustaining. It feels constricting. But I'm with you on this COVID thing. We've been extremely structured here at home, primarily because I have a 15-year-old, but just for general well-being.
Right.
And I learned that through the cancer too. The structure is the thing, or you can just lay in a bed and say, I have cancer, I'm going to die. And that's it, But yeah. So yeah, I think it's really sustaining. It's a good point. So post artist diploma, now you're ready to show the world how great you are. Then what happens?
Well, yeah, you're ready, but the world's not ready for you yet. You play, you play tuba and you want to get an orchestra job, and there are what, 40 full-time tuba jobs in the country ish, and you're just looking at every orchestra and it's like, oh, that guy's 40, crap, that guy's 45, that guy's 50, just kind of waiting, I guess. So I taught middle school band. So my music ed degree came into play. It came back. So, and I am so glad, because I would have much rather taught middle school band than work at Starbucks or something. So I taught 3 Catholic schools in Pittsburgh, and I would do one school 2 days a week. Excuse me. And then the other schools had their own day. So I did that, and I taught a bunch of lessons, and I paid my bills that way. Excuse me.
Wow.
And I just would practice. I would practice a ton. I would just practice during lunch. I didn't eat lunch. I ate lunch at the last 10 minutes before my next class, and I would practice for an hour. I'd stay after school and practice for 2 hours. I think that's another lesson that I learned is like, you got to think like Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods when it comes to, if you want to succeed sometimes, they're the ultra talented people that don't have to do this, but most of us, if you think about Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan or some greats in the sports, they're shooting free throws hours a day, and Tiger Woods is hitting thousands of golf balls a day. It was just that, like, I think just the years of drive and motivation and just kind of like making the time for it, even though I had to teach, or even though I had to do this or drive here or do this, I remember one summer I worked at a catering place. I never did any summer festivals because I always had to work. So I worked at this catering job, and I would do 60, 70, 75 hours a week because it was a small family business, but it was, big events, 400 or 500 people. And I did everything, and I'd get home at 2 in the morning, and I'd go out in my parents' garage and practice for an hour and sleep for 6 hours and wake up and go back to work. So it's just like, I don't know, I just wanted it so bad, and I refused to fail, I guess.
So you were doing that in the summer while you were teaching during the school year, these 3 different Catholic middle schools,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So you share something in common with Doug, who we just talked to on Thursday. Doug did the same thing. He taught Catholic girls high school band in New Jersey.
Nice.
And the whole time, like for 3 years, and the whole time he was practicing during lunch hour, practicing in the band room, and the kids are all screwing around, running all over the place. He's just practicing. So yeah, boy, there's a real commonality there. That's very interesting. You never gave up. You never gave up. Were you thinking when you were doing this at this period in your life, did you ever feel trapped, or did you feel like, I'm going to do this thing, I'm just going to stay on the rails? Was there despondency ever?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure it was frustrating. You lose an audition and you get frustrated. And then I think the first time it was the Chicago Lyric Opera audition in 2011. I was runner up for that. So once I did that, and I kind of got that validation that, okay, I'm not just doing this and people aren't digging it, or, I'm delusional or something. And I got that like validation, like, okay, you're close. Then it really was lit. That was like, I was totally fine. I was never, I'd go lose an audition and be discouraged, of course, but there was never a point where I felt trapped and like I said, I was teaching, I was making an income. We rented a house in Pittsburgh because it's super cheap there. We had a good life. I was busy, I was really busy, but I wouldn't say I could have done that for a couple more years and been totally fine.
So you said Lyric Opera in Chicago? I didn't know that. You auditioned for that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Who had retired or who was leaving?
I honestly don't know the guy's name, to be honest.
I think it was Bob Baukins, Bauchs. Yeah, because I took lessons with him for a year in grad school. Yeah, not really lessons. We just hung out a lot. But anyway, that's another story. Okay, so you got close. The same thing, again, a very interesting mirror to Doug, who was a finalist in Minnesota for Minnesota Orchestra. And it was, oh gosh, the other 3 finalists were big time. What's his face that's in CSO now?
Charlie, yeah.
Yeah, Charlie and all the cats. And so he was sniffing it. But then it still took him a long time. So what about you? What happened?
Yeah, that was 2011. And then I was in the finals for the Charlotte Symphony in 2012. I think 2013, I was in the finals for something else. And then 2014, I got my job with the Little Orchestra. Yeah. So that was my first.
Only 3 gigs, but only 3 auditions before you got a job. That's pretty good.
Oh, no, I had some failures in there too. I can't remember them all right now. I think I wrote it out once. I think I've taken 25 auditions or so. I've won 4 or 5. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. You got to, my parents never understood, like driving 10 hours to take a sublist audition, 10 hours there, take the audition, stay the night, 10 hours back just for a sublist audition, go take a lesson with someone. I would do anything. I mean, really, truly, I would do anything.
Wow. And so what's the value? What's the value there? Like, so your parents, let's say they did, and it doesn't sound like they did, but they sit down and are like, John, now what the heck are you thinking? What would you say to them?
I don't know. Luckily they were very supportive.
Yeah.
If they would have really not been supportive, I'm not sure. I'm pretty bullheaded, so I probably would have just kept doing it anyways. I never had to ask them for money. I always made my own money. If I was never dependent, so that might have been different.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you're taking all these auditions, and the fire's still lit. Clearly, was that all springing forward from the Chicago thing, that's just the first one that just kind of lit your fuse.
Yeah, that was the first one that kind of, it was just, yeah, I had lost a couple before then, and okay, well, I knew I could play. I had to hear people playing. I was like, oh, I can play that better. I hear somebody do something, I can play that better. So I wasn't completely blind. But yeah, the Chicago thing was just like, okay, you can. I almost won a really good job. So, and I was, so that was kind of like I don't know, just that validation that I'm on the right track, I guess, was nice.
That you're in the zip code.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for everybody in the room, I mean, the thing that strikes me about the way you say what you're saying is it's a lot like what Mary said when she was on one of these with us, because very unflappingly she said, "Oh yeah, I think I had 17 auditions before I got my job." Just like that's just what we do. This is just normal. And so
Oh yeah, yeah.
the thing that strikes me is that you guys, you're kind of a strange breed because you go do that time after time after time and effectively are told no, the door's kind of slammed in your face, and yet you're just sitting there going, next, next. That's what it seems like. I mean, just the way you talk about it and the way she talks about it, just like, yeah, what's the next one? Here we go.
Oh yeah, no, I'm always looking ahead, yeah, and losing was honestly more motivation for me than, well, getting close was a lot of motivation, but losing is a lot of motivation. I hate losing.
I
And
know
we've
that.
played golf, and I don't mind
I
losing.
know.
I hate losing to myself. I don't mind losing to you at golf, but I just hate not doing well,
Yeah.
for me, not necessarily I hate losing so much. So that was always motivation. It was like,
Yeah.
sometimes the auditions would line up. I'd have one, and then a couple months later have another. And the day I got back from the audition, instead of moping around not practicing, I would start for the next one, for sure. Yeah. Another thing, you go to school to be like a nurse. You go to school, you check all the boxes. It's not easy, of course, but once you finish, you get a job.
Right.
Same thing for, you want to be an accountant. Go to school, get a job. And with music, especially in the orchestral world, it is not even remotely close to that.
Right.
You have to be willing to fill in the blank for however long. As long as you have your eye on that prize and you're diligent and trying, and that's kind of where, and that's why a lot of us are where we are, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch at all. And you know the inside of the world much more than I, to say that there's probably a lot of people just as talented as you, just as talented as Mary, who was on the call, who didn't have that gear. They didn't have the ability to hang in when it just got ugly. True enough?
Oh yeah, oh, totally true. Yeah. There's people, you audition as long. I am not that old, but I've auditioned it's been at least, I don't know, 10 years now or so. You saw people, and then you see people kind of fall off, and people fall off, and yeah. Oh, totally. There are people, I'm not trying to say I'm not talented, because I am, but there are people that are more talented than I am, 100%. I hear them do stuff, and I'm just like, I can't, how do you even do that? But when it comes down to playing like Meistersinger in time and in tune, these people, for some reason, just can't have the diligence to just sit down and do it.
Right. It's funny you would say that. Doug referenced the Meistersinger the other day. I think that's what we're known for. Anyway, good. All right. So then what?
Well, then I was in Louisville, and I was happy, full-time job, benefits.
So what happened in that audition? Why did you get it?
Oh,
Did you
okay.
feel like you played the same?
No, I definitely played really well. Yeah, I prepared like crazy. And I played really well and advanced, and then played a great semifinal round and advanced, and then played final round. I was a little tired, but played well. And then they had a sight read, which was weird. The Prelude to Bach's second cello suite. Yeah. So
Weird.
yeah, it was four of us in the finals, and then they went down to three, and then I got, you go out to play, and then on the stand is Prelude to Bach's second cello suite, which, if anybody's looked on that, is not easy.
Right.
And my face was shot because we had to play bead low a couple of times. I had to play these rounds were really long, half an hour just playing. And Bach's, the Prelude to the second cello suite goes up to G's and F's above the staff. So I looked at it, and I was just like, I'm gonna not sound very good. all
You
this.
were missing the euphonium about that time.
Yeah, I was like, I can play this, but it's not going to be great. You know what I could do really well though is play this on C tuba, a down an octave. I could do that because I had practiced that before by chance. And I asked, and they kind of laughed behind the screen. You know, I heard some, I think it was our music director laughed. He goes, "Whatever you sound better on, go for it." So then I played the whole thing, beginning to end. And then I get back in the waiting room and I'm talking to the other two guys, and they were like, "How much of that did you play?" I was like, "Oh, I played the whole thing." It was like, "Oh, they had me cut it off like a quarter of the way through." And I was like,
Then you knew. Yeah, they knew.
well, maybe, yeah. And I was like, wait. And then I told them I played on C tuba down an octave, and they were like, "Oh, that's a good idea." And then it worked out. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was nice.
yeah. And so how long were you there?
3 years.
Yeah. And what was remarkable about that? What was good for you during that time? Because now you're in the profession, you're doing what you always dreamed of. What in that, especially like the first year, what was it like compared to what you thought it would be?
It was actually better than I thought it would be.
Good.
It was more stressful than I thought it would be, I think. Just the whole tenure process is stressful. Um, you know, playing, you can't hide playing tuba. You, you, you have big rep. I think my first concert was Mahler one. So it was just like right off the bat, just, I had to just do it. So that was, I would say it was much more stressful than I expected,
Mm.
but playing every week with great players, and the low brass section was really good, and getting a paycheck every week it was really nice. Yeah. I
Were
actually felt like I could like relax a little bit for the first time. You know, it was just years and years of grinding and grinding and grinding. And then you get there and it was like, okay, I can like sit, you know,
So
and go.
what about your like your regimen? Because the regimen and the discipline and the mental focus, which we just talked about, is what got you there. So
Mhm.
now you're in the gig. What changes, if anything?
Um, I would say having to save my face for work was new. That was a new thing for me because I could practice before. I would practice all the time, you know, and then I got there and it was like, if I wanted to sound really good at work, I had to take it easy. So I was actually practicing a little bit less during work weeks, especially because I wanted to, you know, you don't want chip notes and stuff. Um, so that changed a bit. Working out was the same. All the other general lifestyle things were the same. And luckily, you know, my wife is super into that stuff too. So we're really good when it comes to that, which is nice. Um, and then what else? I
Were you
didn't stop.
teaching?
I didn't. Yeah. Well, my first year I wasn't, and then the second year I started taught at this Christian school, Campbellsville University in Kentucky. Um, so yeah, I was teaching. I had like 3 or 4 students. It wasn't that big, but it was fun.
Mhm.
But I never stopped. I think once I got to Louisville, it was kind of like, all right, this is another stop on the way to somewhere else, like here, you know, like a top 15-ish size orchestra, I would say. So I was subbing in Cincinnati a lot. I played St. Louis a lot. Um, I still drove 10 hours and took Philadelphia sublist audition. Drove 12 hours to take Minnesota Symphony sublist audition. Um, I was still hungry and motivated. You know, I didn't want to be complacent and just kind of slip into, oh, cool, I'm getting a paycheck now. I can stop.
Wow. So then this thing opens up. And so what was the motivation? Was it the same motivation as taking the sublist audition in Philly and in Minnesota?
Yeah, it was the same.
Yeah,
It wasn't Seattle specific, or it could have been the Minnesota Orchestra, and I would have done the same thing. It was the same. Yeah.
right.
And luckily, I ran into Chris Olka in Cincinnati. We played together there, and then he heard me play. I played a bit for him, and then he would have me come out here and sub a little bit before the audition, which really was helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, for the students in the group, you guys don't know Chris Okla, but he taught for us too and was in the Seattle Symphony for a long time. How long? 10 years, maybe?
I think he joined in 1999, so 15, 16 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, great guy. And both Chris and John are like normal tuba player. You don't meet a lot of normal people in the tuba world. I speak from experience, but very normal people. And I talked to Chris recently, actually, had a long talk.
great.
It was good. Okay, good. So this thing comes up.
Oh, sorry,
And so I
hold
imagine
on.
Dan's
Can you
probably
repeat that? You went robot for me for some
oh,
reason. It was all,
oh, sorry. Yeah. Jody's probably teaching and Hannah's in school and all the computers are fired up.
that's
Um,
okay.
so Seattle comes open and you're just going to take this as part of your professional routine, more or less. That's kind of what
hmm
you're saying. So tell us about what happened there that wound up getting you to our city here.
I had just prepared more than I ever had because I knew I had a chance because I knew they liked my playing because I'd come here and played. But you still have to, it's not, you still have to play behind the screen.
Right.
I knew they liked my playing, which made me motivated to really go for it and made me feel good. But it wasn't handed to me in any sense because you still have to, claw your way through the screen, and that's hard to do. But I think I definitely was more prepared than I ever had been for this one. I was very detailed and regimented with the practice and the routine and the recording myself, playing mock auditions for a lot of people. Um, I didn't want to leave any stone unturned. It was like if I came out here and I lost, I could go home and sleep fine. But if I came out here lost and didn't try for it, that would have been unacceptable. So yeah, I just went really, really kind of crazy for it, to be honest. Practiced a ton. Yeah, and then I got here and I just ended up playing. That semifinal round was the best round I've ever played in any audition. Was here.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I would say, yeah. Well, I know it wasn't flawless, but it was like note perfect. Just everything was there. And then the final round, I started to. I have a tendency to start chipping if I get tired. Little blips here and there, which happens to most of us. Uh, I think I played too much that day. So then the final round was later, and then I chipped a little bit more than I would have liked, but they ended up liking it enough.
Yeah. It's something you said kind of in passing. I just want to seize on for a minute because I think it's important. You talked about clawing your way through the screen. Can you tell me what that means?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, auditions in general, it's kind of like UW auditions for placement. You walk in on stage or whatever room they're using, and the whole committee's behind the screen. So that means you can be anyone. I think it's honestly kind of the purest hiring process, really. There's no biases. There's no, preconceived thing. You could be a 21-year-old. You could be an 18-year-old. An 18-year-old just won the Milwaukee Symphony, which I think blows my mind.
Wow.
Tuba job. So that's when they'll usually have, let's just say 100 people prelim round behind the screen. And then what we do is you vote. People vote behind the screen. And then if you get enough votes, you go on to the next round. And that might be 15 people still behind the screen. And then they'll whittle that down to sometimes one, sometimes five. It just depends. And then they may even whittle that down again. Yeah. So what I meant by that was that even though they knew me and they knew my playing and they liked me, that they had no idea who I was behind the screen. So that was, yeah, it wasn't anything weird.
So, but what do you do? What do you do to separate yourself? I don't know if you even realize what you said. You said you were going to claw your way through the screen. So that says a lot about, first of all, the kind of person you are, and then the fact, to my ears, that you're trying to do something that really distinguishes you. So what are you going
Yeah.
to
I mean,
do?
I always try, I hear a lot of people play and there's a lot that happens when you really kind of regiment yourself and dig into excerpts. Because how many times have I played Meistersinger or worked on Meistersinger or Ride? I mean, I can't even begin to count. I don't want to know, honestly, because it would depress me probably. It's like when I used to play World of Warcraft and you type in and see how much your play time, like you logged in, and it's just like, I've played this game for 2 months of my life, and like, oh my god, that's like Ride. If there was a Ride counter, but I hear people play this and it's just like, okay, I played with the right rhythm and the right sound and the right articulation. That's it, right? It's like, well, no, there's like a whole, I think what I try to, and what I think I do better than some people is I make the style between the excerpts quite a bit different. And I find the musical lines in the excerpts that sometimes people just get caught up in the nuts and bolts, I guess. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Jacob's Song and Wind. It's like if you have it in your head and you hear what it's supposed to sound like, can you portray that to people? And that's kind of what I go for. So I guess in an audition, I probably exaggerate that, because every excerpt is, no, I'm trying to think how to say this. So if I'm going to play Meister Singer in the orchestra, I'm going to play quite a bit different than if I played in an audition, because the audition, you're really, there's no reference, there's no other sounds, there's no other dynamics, there's no other music. It's like, that's you. So I kind of treat all those more like solos than orchestral excerpts, in a sense, where they're musical, and I try to find the line all the time and try to make sure that the listener is not bored, because I've sat in auditions and it gets boring, to be honest. It's just like you hear your 80th bass play and you're like, oh, okay. So how are you going to keep them interested? Because everybody can play, which is the scary thing. It's not like people can't play. It's not like you're the only one that can play and that would be easy. It's like, I think we heard 130 bass players for our bass audition that I was on.
Wow.
I can probably count on, I'll say, two hands, the people that couldn't play.
Right.
And it's just, how are you going to distinguish these people? How are, you obviously have to have really good time. That's very important. Really good pitch, a really good sound. Those are the three things you can't go without. And then the rest is just like, how are you going to make this sound better or easier than the person that played before you?
Right, right. So this is interesting, because what you're saying is that you're bringing imagination to it, and you're trying to apply some sort of narrative when you're talking about line and this and that. So there's a kind of it would seem to me, sort of a tender line there between showing your imagination, your artistry in that circumstance, without crossing over the line and sort of, being not very kind to composer intent, and maybe showing off a little bit. So the committee's like, who's this guy?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a line. You have to make it sound, a lot of times the people on the other side they're hearing the orchestra in their head. They're thinking about the piece.
Right.
They're thinking about their part in the piece. With the tuba audition, there's no tuba players on the committee. You're playing for trombone players, you're playing for trumpet, horn, whatever. And they're hearing their parts. They're hearing how their part would fit with what you're doing. So it has to be within the realm of the piece. But I definitely go a little overboard with dynamic contrast and just overall musical line, just to kind of make it obvious.
Right. So in Seattle, you get the job, you start in, and then you have to fit into a group. Now, you've just been playing with Louisville, and there's probably a certain expectation in that section and in the orchestra. This is sort of the role of the tuba, blah, blah, blah. As you travel from orchestra to orchestra, keeping in mind to the room here that he's played in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and St. Louis and where all, everywhere. How do you modify? Are you a chameleon in those circumstances? Do you just use your ears and try to roll with it? What's the play there?
If I'm subbing somewhere, I try to do what they're doing a little bit more than, like in Louisville, I didn't want to just play a certain way to get tenure. It's like, I'm going to play and act how I act, which is, I feel like I'm a very respectful person and a good colleague. So some people aren't, so they might have to act a little bit, but I wanted them to hire me for me. So I didn't play. I played pretty loud if I needed to, or if I felt like I needed to. And it was always, if somebody told me to play quieter, the conductor, of course I'd listen. But same way within Seattle. It's a pretty loud brass section here, so I didn't have any issues with that. Kind of played however I felt was necessary or musical at that time. And, if somebody would say something, if Koichiro would ask something shorter, or, something like that, you have to be very flexible and malleable, which is the thing I try to get some of my students to do sometimes, is to be malleable. Somebody asks you to play something longer, shorter, or louder, or that happens in the auditions all the time, where the music director says, because music directors, they don't know how the tuba works, to be honest. They barely know how the brass instruments work unless they're a brass player at all. That's like, you'll get music directors where it's like, French horn, no tongue, please just come in out of nowhere. It's like,
right.
it's just, it gets frustrating, but you have to try to do it. So, I'm trying to, just be flexible. But I go sub somewhere. I think the one where I play with the Cleveland Orchestra, and Cleveland Orchestra is probably the most American. It's probably the one American orchestra that's like more kind of Viennese, more
Yeah.
prim and proper and tidy and neat and not pushed or anything. So when I played with them, I definitely reined it in.
Yeah.
Because I knew that if I stuck out, it would be frowned upon.
Right.
Everywhere else that I kind of play, you just gotta gauge your section too. If the low brass section's throwing down, then go for it. If they're not, you don't want to show up and bury everybody.
Right. Right.
Yeah, just be a good colleague and musician, I guess.
Have you ever gotten in fights with conductors at all, or gotten a hand, or?
I got in one, my Louisville, this one, my first year, he was the conductor emeritus. And he came back and he always would harass the younger people. And he kind of kept telling me to play lower and lower and lower on this note. And I'm just like pulling my tuning slide out, like looking at him. I got so flat. It was like a half step flat at least. And then he goes, no. And he gets all mad. And I'm like, what do you, there was no zone of that note to where it was acceptable to him. And he would do that a lot. But once I did that, he stopped.
Uh-huh.
Once, it just depends. You can't do that with everybody, but with him, once I did that, and I kind of was, because he would single me out and tell me lower, and then I go really flat, and everybody's looking at me like, what are you gonna do? And after I did that, and I just pulled it out, I sagged it probably a half step, 3/4 of a step, and then he stopped. Yeah.
He must have learned to tune in a different key. It's pretty funny.
He was probably 85. I mean, who knows what his hearing was doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's bad. So, just generally, just advice relative to like building your playing. Like if you're thinking about where you were at Kent State a million years ago, and then this whole ridiculous regimen that you went through and the dedication, we've talked about that a lot. But what kind of things would you say to people that are sort of universally true, instrument to instrument, things that you got to be hitting every day in order to get to where you're going? What do you need to be doing?
I think the best part about my entire day of practice is the consistency and just the beginning, the routine. Some people say warm up, but it's more than just a warm up, because really you can be warmed up pretty quick. The routine is really where that's really where all the consistency builds itself in, and that's when I work on. I'm going to go back to sports and say Tiger Woods at a driving range, chipping 100 chips. That's where I'm doing my long tones, my lip slurs, my scales. I'll do different exercises all the time, every day, and that's kind of where I'm doing those little things. And then I'll dive into music,
Right.
or I'll dive into what I'm doing, excerpts or whatever. But those are definitely the most important things, for sure.
So somebody who's in shape like you, how much time do you spend on that? What do you allocate?
45 minutes.
Wow.
Half an hour. It depends on the day. Usually, work starts at 10. I'll get there at 8:45 or so. And I'll just leisurely make my way through it. I think this morning I did 45 minutes. And it's become so part of my routine that I get weird until I do it, unless I'm taking a day off. I get like, if it's 3 o'clock and I haven't done it yet, I kind of get anxious. So I just usually do it in the morning.
Right. And so when you're doing this, how do you keep it from being mindless?
That's a really good question. And some days I don't fully achieve that. I'm known to like play scales with one hand and text in the other hand, to be honest. I can multitask really well, but I wouldn't say I'm fully into scales, obviously. But I try to listen to the sound. Number one, how is it sounding? It might be a stupid C major scale, but is it connected? Are my slurs good? Is the intonation good? Just listening for finer details gets you locked in a little bit more than just pushing the right buttons down. I never think about pushing the right buttons down. That's like a given. That's not even a question at this point. It's just what it sounds like. Are these slurs good? Is my air working well? Is my embouchure feeling? Is it feel good? And that kind of by focusing on those things, that kind of gets you locked in a little bit better.
Yeah. So do you ever get rutted? And if you get rutted, what do you do? In other words, let's say 2-3 days in a row, you just feel like you mentioned chipping notes. You're chipping notes for no reason. You're not tired, but stuff's not happening. How do you bust out of that?
It definitely happens, and sometimes it lasts, sometimes it sticks around,
Yeah.
which is kind of scary. But I usually, if I can, I'll take a day off. Usually it's that. Usually that fixes it, and then the next day I'll really take my time getting back. A lot of long tones and stuff like that. There are times you can't do that, and you can't take the day off, and you kind of have to work. I mean, there's definitely times where this just feels not great.
Yeah.
And that's another time to really go for what you want it to sound like, because it will work. It's pretty amazing how terrible this can feel if you really know what you want it to sound like. Your face will make it work.
Yeah.
In the winter and you get chapped or something, that doesn't feel great. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, taken with Mr. Jacobs, I remember all the walking wounded that would come in there, right, in the hallway, because they're big time pro players. I mean, some big people like John Fletcher was waiting in the hallway once after a lesson I had. And
cool.
They've run into something and they feel like they can't get out of it. Is there anybody that you see? It doesn't have to be a tuba player. Is there anybody you would think, I need to go see this person? They can help me figure this out. Is there anybody like that in your life or no?
No. I mean, knock on wood, no, I haven't had that issue yet. I imagine some things are going to creep in as I get older, maybe less diligent on things. But I did have a slight injury this past year. I think I had we were playing Star Wars last summer and Empire Strikes Back, which is an amazing score. I had so much fun. I had too much fun, and we had a double on Saturday, and a lot of it's in the low register, and I was frowning, and I had some muscle here that kind of didn't tear. It wasn't a tear or anything. It wasn't no snapping, but it was definitely discomfort here, and that pulls down this part of my lip. I dealt with that for quite a while last season. Honestly, that stuck around. So I got a hold of. I called around a couple. There's this guy Colin Williams in the New York Phil, plays trombone, and he actually had a full tear of his muscle on his lip. He had like a separation. It was really bad. And he went through all this surgery and rehab. And I kind of was just talking to him about, what had happened and what I felt. And, my armature wasn't failing, so it wasn't a tear or anything, which was good. And he just said, expect it to linger. And if it, take a little bit of time off, but just be diligent with your practice and just trust that it'll go away. And it feels good now. But that was definitely not the most comfortable thing to deal with.
Yeah. Okay, so one more question, then we're going to see if the students have some questions for you. This is a hard one. What do you miss right now?
What do I miss? Oh, geez. Hold on, let me get out my list of things. I miss going to work, honestly. I love work so much, and that's why, I don't know. I'm really lucky. I fully am aware of that. I'm really lucky that I go to work every day. There might be frustrations and stress and, bitching at the conductor or colleagues making me mad one day or something, but I really love going to work. So that has been, I miss that a lot.
Yeah. What about work that that really bugged you before isn't going to bug you when you get back?
Yeah, it'll get there eventually, and things will get back to normal. I'll be really appreciative at first. Yeah. I'm sure, and then I'll try to put things into perspective, but things are still gonna, I think at first though, I'll just be really glad to be there.
Yeah.
I think it's going to feel weird. Playing is going to feel weird because even though I'm playing, I think when I was playing 6-7 hours a week last week, the week before, a lot, like all day. But I bet you if I went to work within 30 minutes, I'd be tired. It's just totally different.
Yeah.
It's totally different. It's way louder. There's way more sustain. It's more stressful.
Yeah.
You're adjusting pitch constantly. So it's going to take a lot of us a lot of getting used to, Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's time for you and I to play golf again, as I told you.
Yes,
it is.
So, I'm playing Friday with Patrick.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah, I told him to wear a helmet because it's going to be rough. He better be careful.
Well, listen to the students. It is time for you to send some questions to Corey, if you have any for John. And then don't leave, because I want to talk to you about stuff. I see a couple people flaked out of the call already. Hang on. So, Corey.
Yep, let's see. Gabriel, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, John, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, so it's actually a two-part question. You mentioned in your routine that you have long tones and flexibility. Are there any other parts of it, articulation, multiple tonguing, any stuff like that that you include in on it?
See, it's really weird but when I don't play trumpet, so I think if I had to do that a lot more, I would. I've always had really good articulation with good single tongue speed, so, and for tuba parts, I'm pretty good. So I wouldn't say. I think at the end of every other one, I might do some scales that are double tongued or something or triple tongued, but I don't do too much. I slur everything for a really long time. I probably do 60-70% of my, maybe 80% of my routine completely slurred.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
and then I might add tongue in.
Okay, and then second question, you mentioned taking days off, and you talked a little bit about the injury that you kind of went through. What is your general rule for how many days on, how many days off? How do you balance that aspect?
If it's heavy, if I'm playing a lot, 1 day a week is good. Yeah, 1 day a week. I use hopefully on Sunday. Sometimes you don't get that chance. You know, work. If we work Tuesday through Sunday and I have to teach at UW on Monday, I like to play in my lessons, so that doesn't work. But ideally, 1 day a week. 2 days is not good for me. It takes too long to get back. It's just too. I don't know how. There's a lot of brass players out there. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's just so frustrating.
Yeah, you miss 2 days, and it's like you completely have to
Yeah.
reform your embouchure. And yeah, I get you.
What else?
That's it for me, at least, that I want to
Okay.
ask you, but I'll talk to you later.
Okay. We have a question here for you. What do you think band directors should teach their students, especially those in small towns, to help people keep playing?
Right now, like as in right now.
Right now, in general, when things
Okay.
are back to normal, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. I have a lot of friends that teach band or teaching middle school band, and it's worrisome. It's tough just finding the motivation for these kids, and the retention would make me nervous. I would just There's a lot of resources now actually due to this. There's a lot of pros going online doing things. You know, I've definitely posted more than I ever have. I'm not a huge fan of promoting myself, to be honest. I don't like it. I should do it more, but I don't like it. But I've been posting a lot more, and there's a lot of resources and a lot of free stuff out there on Facebook and YouTube that I would definitely push them to. There's a lot. I'm trying to think. There's a Brass Junkies Academy that's $80 or something. You get a whole week worth of stuff. I know this is very early. I want to try to do a Seattle Symphony Brass Institute in August, and I'm part of a tuba thing in August, where the internet has it's not ideal to teach online, but it has opened up the doors for more people to be involved. You know, because you can do a Zoom. Like, look at this today. I don't know how many people we have on here, but there's a lot. You can do a Zoom the whole week. You don't have to fly kids out. You don't have to find housing for them. You don't have to fly the artists out, you know. So I would have them try their best to find these opportunities for the students, and just, you know, all you can do, you can't make them practice, but you can send them YouTube videos, check out this really cool tuba thing, or, you know, I don't know. It's tough.
Sure. Thank you. What about like in general, what would you like to see band directors focus on more with their students?
You know, being a band director myself at one point, it's hard to, when you don't have enough time, and it's hard to balance sounding good for a concert and what you really should be teaching them. I don't think I figured that out in my brief period. You know, it was like the concert's coming up, oh no, you know, and then you need to sound good. And then also it's like, I would love to just sit there here and spend this whole class doing scales and stuff that's going to actually make you better at the instrument. So I wish that band teachers would spend a little more time on fundamentals and don't let kids slide so much with certain things. You know, I go to a lot of schools around here, and a lot of schools in Louisville. It's not just here. Kids aren't articulating. I didn't articulate until I went to college. I air attacked everything because I thought that was right. How did that slide? I go to hear some trombone kid and he's like playing over here and he's super puff cheeks, not articulating, and he's moving the slide like he's like spreading peanut butter on toast. It's like, how is this? Just pay more attention, and which is hard, because when I taught middle school, I had one kid who probably ate mud during recess, and I had the other kid that was playing all of his scales on saxophone and piano, and we were learning jazz. It's hard to give that kid the attention that he needs, and the kid who's not doing anything the attention he needs, and still, so it's definitely tough. Encourage private instruction too. Yeah, sorry, that was a pretty long answer.
No, that was good. That was perfect. I'm not seeing any other questions here. Oh, sorry, Professor Salzman, you were cutting out there a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I just like the eating mud part.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions here in my chat window. If anybody else has some, go ahead and send them to me. I have one for you.
Yeah,
I have one for you actually. So as somebody who works, on faculty at a university, what are things that you look for in colleagues, like new colleagues, if you're on like a hiring committee or something, or what are things that you like to see in incoming students? What are qualities, maybe beyond musical things? What do you look for?
I'd say first off, everybody wants to work with somebody they can get along with, and somebody that they can have a great relationship with, because you're stuck with, I don't want to say stuck with people, but you might be working with these people for a very long time. I'm 34 right now. If we hired somebody in the orchestra, I would be with that person for 30 more years. Playing the instrument well obviously is a given, but I would rather have somebody that I could get along with and just maybe a little bit not as competent on the instrument. That goes a long way. So I would just, somebody that's respectful, somebody that is easy to get along with, somebody that's organized, all that stuff. Those are all traits that I would definitely like to see in a colleague for sure.
Well, John,
I'm not seeing any more questions, so back to you, Professor.
Yeah, well, John, thank you so much. We have a weird tradition. Everybody has to turn on their sound and applaud for our guests. So please, everybody, go. Yay.